All right, fellas. Yeah, here we go once again, man. Big Mike coming at you live and direct. Max and Limits Radio Show with my esteemed co-host, man, Tony Macio. And let me tell the fellas something, man. That the fellas has been rocking with us forever and a day. Right now, you need to bear with us, man. We are trying to get some traction for the new YouTube channel, man. But rest and believe, trust and believe, we will be putting a lot of material in the Patreon as well. That will be exclusive to the heavy hitters, man, to the fellas that's been with us and been rocking with us forever and a day, man. But you're gonna have to tolerate us coming out here, paying some TLC to this new channel. We're gonna be putting some old stuff and some new stuff out here to get the new listeners acquainted with Big Mike and Tony Macio. So with that being said, man, what we're going to do right now, we are going to be talking about the channel, what the channel is about, who the channel is for, what we hope to accomplish, man. You know what I mean? Me and Tony, we're going to be doing some banter on that, man, to make sure that y'all understand where we stand on this subject when it comes to females and relationships and pimping, macking, tricking, and whatnot. We want to make sure unequivocally that you understand us. You know what I mean? Yeah, we got to get some understanding, man, because there has been some misunderstandings about who we are and what we do and what we stand for, man. So, Tony, what do you hope to accomplish by speaking up on this thing called tricking and speaking up on male-female relationships and dating? What is your main focus here? What are you trying to get across to the fellas, man?
My main objective is to call out what's been going on for decades.
Okay.
Everything I'm talking about isn't new, man. The stuff I'm saying isn't new. I'm just saying call it what it is.
All right.
Call it what it is. The dating world has always been, or the so-called dating market, has always been a realm of undefined or a kind of informal prostitution.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way it's always been. And I'm saying if that's the way it's always been, y'all might as well negotiate. All this stuff about relationships, you're not meeting a relationship, you're not having a relationship with somebody that you just met. And then when I started learning that, the biggest revelation to me was when I discovered that women, as the late Alan Roger Curry was accurate in saying, he said, women put men in different categories.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about categories, and I won't go into that. Go back and listen to his content if you want to hear that. But for my purposes, it was about, okay, whether I was going to smash you or whether I'm not going to smash you. So the biggest revelation in my life was finding out that women knew what men they were going to smash within 5 minutes of talking to them. And it always tend to follow a typical phenotype or typical personality. So what I was saying is that, okay, if women have determined who they're going to smash off the bat, and everybody else has to pay, what I call the ugly nigga tax. And boy, did that term get me in. That stirred up some trouble with some other content creators.
Okay.
If women have determined already out the gate, they put you in a category where they're going to treat you different than the person who they're really attracted to. And if they're charging you for being different, you might as well get something out of being different. That's all I was saying.
All right.
And that's all I was saying with the tricking. Okay, if I'm not the jawline nigga, and if I don't look like the jawline nigga, but you still want to get my money and I get nothing out of it.
Hey, Tony.
Yeah.
Hold on, bro. Hold on.
Yeah, I remember.
All right. Go ahead. Proceed.
Yeah, I was saying that if there is going to be this type of rank discrimination, if there's going to be penis profiling, and what you were going to do in essence is just come to me and use up my time and my money, and I not get anything in exchange for that. I'm just being your emotional tampon. Mm-hmm. And I'm just being somebody you vomit your feelings all over, and you spend my money, and then you get me to lift your refrigerator and move your furniture. You get to borrow money from me and never pay it back,
Mm-hmm.
then there needs to be a fair exchange because that is a robbery. You're
Right.
just taking from me, and you're taking from me under the guise that you know that I'm attracted to you. And so this type of chicanery, this type of finesse, this type of manipulation has always existed for a certain group of dudes that weren't the apple's eye to women sexually.
Hmm.
So I was saying, it's me. I started thinking, what everybody started thinking. And they'll say, well, and some people are going to say, let me just come on out and see. Some people will say, well, you only dealing with a certain type of woman. Yeah, we are. We are dealing with a certain type of woman. You dealing with the woman that you sexually attracted to. And
Hmm.
that doesn't necessarily have to be a promiscuous woman because I think to some degree all women practice this type of manipulation.
Yes, they do.
So, um, my thing is that if you get to use me for my time, my money, my services, my labor, you get to extract all of that from me. You get to, as we used to say back in the day, you get to extract the raw materials from me consistently, and I get nothing in exchange except a pat on the head and be told, "Oh, you so sweet." No, no, that you playing me, you using me, and
Hmm.
so my thing was, okay, no, we need to trade. And that made all the sense in the world to me but I couldn't see it because, of the bravado, your ego,
Yeah.
well, I have to be that dude and I have to be that nigga. It's like, okay, well, all you have to do is dress a certain way. All you have to do is talk a certain way. And you couldn't be something that you weren't. I saw that. A lot of dudes, and especially now that we went through the Kevin Samuels era when all these dudes were trying to be something that they're not, when they're
Hmm.
changing a uniform or they're putting on suits. That's not who you are. And they're putting on these suits to try to popcorn, peacock, and showboat in front of women that they're attracted to. And it's always the same type of woman. It's always the same type of woman. And so what I was saying, or my argument has always been, look, we just need to put everything on the table and come out in the open. Look, what you want from me is you want me to pay after this ninja has robbed you. So in other
Right.
words, after you done spent up all your paper on him, now you want to come to me and you want to bail out. You want me to pay for your foolishness. You want me to pay for your mismanagement of your money with a ninja that really could care less whether you live or die. You
Hmm.
ride for a ninja who won't walk around the corner for you, and you want me to compensate for that, and I'm not going to do that. What
Mm.
we will do is engage in an exchange of goods and services. That's what we're going to engage in. And
Mm.
so this, I have always said, let's just come out on the table and put it all on the table. This is what you want. This is what I want. But see, when you start saying that, then what they want to do is they want to start the shaming. That's
Yeah.
where the shaming comes in. Oh, I thought you were different. You don't want nothing but sex. I'm like, you don't want nothing but money.
Yeah. Yeah.
You'll sit here and say, well, it's too soon for me to ask for sex, but it ain't too soon for me to spend my money.
Hmm.
You don't ever say, well, it's too soon for me to be asking you to borrow $300.
Yeah.
That never comes into the equation. But you think it's too soon for me to be asking for some satisfaction. You know what I want to say, but I can't say it because we were going to try to be PG for YouTube. But
Right. Right.
it's too late. It's too early for you. Never say it's too early to get me to help you move. You never say it's too early,
Right.
to borrow money from me to fix your tire. You never say it's too early to use me as a utility. You never say it's too early to tell me about all the things that this dude did to you.
Mm.
You never tell me it's too early to sit on the phone and cry to me hour after hour about hour about how you actually perform fellatio on some ninja, but you won't even give me a kiss. And you'll
Right.
carry on for hours after hours about this ninja, but you never say, well, it's too early for me to share that kind of personal information. You
Yeah.
never say that, you know. So,
Mm.
we look at all the ways that this type of exploitation takes place over dudes that women don't consider to be the most attractive or the top tier in terms of sexual desirability. So
Mm.
what I'm saying is let's just trade. And my in terms of what I hope to accomplish, I have never wanted to be. I'm just going to come out and say this. I was just stating my perspective. It was never my desire to be a content creator. I just enjoyed having the conversation.
Yeah.
And I wanted my perspective to reflect those guys like me, guys that didn't find themselves in that line. What do you do? How do you survive? How do you keep from being manipulated, played, and finessed? And then by the same token, not wind up disliking or hating women. That's
Mm.
where I've always identified with the underdog because I'm the underdog.
Yeah.
I've always identified with the underdog. I've always identified with the man who had his back up against the wall. I've always identified with the man who had to work, harder. In the words of James Brown, James Brown said, he said when he was coming along, in order to be, this showbiz idol, you had to look like Jackie Wilson, tall, light skinned, curl, wavy hair from the process, of course. He said, I didn't have any of that. I was short, dark skinned, and I had quote unquote African features. So
Yeah.
I had to outwork everybody that was out there on the stage. Well, that was my perspective when it came to dating and sex. That was my perspective for the dudes that didn't meet that conventional archetype of a man. This is what you had to do, and I wanted to actually be honest and have honest conversations about what you are up against when you're out there in the dating market, because it is essentially nothing but the blade.
Mm.
That's all it is. It's nothing but the blade. And they women, I always found it ironic that women would want to act like 304s. Excuse me, they would want to treat men like tricks, but not want to be called 304s.
Yeah.
That's striking. You want to treat a man like a trick, but then you don't want to be defined as a 304. And
Mm.
I thought that was hypocritical and ironic. And so my thing is no, if we trick into there are three principles involved in a trick relationship. There is the pimp, there's the 304, and there's the trick. But everybody was concentrating on the trick. Nobody was talking about the 304. And if
Hmm.
they talked about the pimp, it was always from a position of reverence that, he was this omniscient, omnipresent figure who just stood back and just collected money and just benefited off of your physical misfortune. And
Hmm.
my thing was no, he's involved in the dirt too. Everybody we all in the mud. Ain't nobody in here clean. I don't care what kind of loud suits they wear.
Yeah.
Everybody in here is muddy. So my position or my purpose was to share my perspective and to be brutally honest about it and to be as honest as possible, about how I saw it and what was going down and to tell the truth about and to have honest conversations about what was going down. And it's not always pretty. As you would say, it's not all lollipops and gumdrops. It's not
Hmm.
all sunshine and roses. Sometimes it's thorns and mud. Sometimes it's bloody. Sometimes it's dirty. It's grimy. It's shisty. But the truth must be told. And I wanted to have that conversation and tell that truth and tell that truth from the perspective of a man that was not in the line or not in the category of being just organically sexually attracted. What do you do? What do you do when you have a disability? What do you do if you don't have an outgoing personality? What do you do if you find yourself as a responsible person and you're designated as a so called educated lane? What do you do if you're a guy that wants to live, you're a salt of the earth guy, and you want to live by the rules and you want to live your life by a certain code or certain books that doesn't entertain ninja rituals?
Yeah.
See, what do you do? What do you do if you like reading? What do you do if you are the type of individual that pursues intelligence and intellect, and you can espouse the theory, articulate the theories of Descartes, or you can articulate the theories of philosophers, Plato, Hegel, Nietzsche. What do you do if
Huh?
you
What?
are
Huh?
yeah,
What? 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 Huh?
exactly, exactly.
Hey,
What?
hey, hey, hey! Can I interject right quick?
Sure, go ahead, brother.
Yeah, man. Hey, you know what I found just to be hilarious, man? We just did the concept of critical thinking And many brothers that's out here on YouTube, man, I hate to, I don't know, man. I don't want to sound snobbish, man, like I'm all that and whatnot, man. But when it comes to just critical thinking, just common sense, a lot of brothers lack that, man. Because if you out here and you on YouTube and you take the standard advice of some of these so-called dating gurus, now a lot of the dating gurus, when you look at them, they have what we call, they won the genetic lottery. A lot of them are what we could consider handsome. You know what I mean? They look a certain way. They got the certain aesthetic. You know what I mean? And they rocking around here, goose stepping. Yeah, I'm an alpha. I'm a select. And, the women love me, and this and that and the third. I don't have to pay, and then they look at you and they expect you to play by the same rules. You didn't win the genetic lottery, man. For whatever reason, you didn't get the charisma, or you didn't get the washboard abs, you didn't get the curly hair, you didn't get the green eyes, certain things that, females just find unbelievably appealing. You know what I mean? And so what their game is they want you to look at your hand, look at your skill set, and not even use it. Just like you was talking about, you read, you're intelligent, you're logical, you're philosophical. They don't want you to use that kind of stuff, man. They want you to be trying to get at the females on their level. You know what I mean? If you ain't physically appealing or physically attractive, that's the end all and be all of the game. And they're actually acting like their physical attraction, or their physical, they acting like them being handsome is the way to go, and everybody needs to follow suit and follow with that script. But everybody ain't handsome. You know what I mean? Some dudes got to do something else to wiggle their way in and get some action. And so that was the thing that just always made me just revile and be disgusted by certain dating coaches, man, where they get you to poo-poo on your skill set, on the things that you good at. They don't want you to use that. They want you to go ahead and be like, nah, man, it's all about, the physicalness. Are you attractive? Are you the man? Are you handsome? You know what I mean? Your mouthpiece, and just the typical nonsense, man, that they peddling out here on YouTube. But what me and Tony have proposed is, look, the so-called average dude, the so-called nerd, the so-called educated lane, he can win too. He's just got different tools. And you got to embrace them tools, man. So that's all I wanted to interject, man. Go ahead.
Well, my thing was this: it's like that's why I said that dating coaches were useless.
Right. Okay.
And that's what got the late Alan Roger Curry upset with me when I said dating coaches are useless. That's
Mm-hmm.
exactly what I meant.
Okay.
Because what the material is um, this type of auto this type of self nihilism, where
Mm-hmm.
you what self abnegation, that's the word I'm looking for. This type of self abnegation where they sit up and ridicule you and tell you everything's wrong with you because you are not them.
Right.
Because you don't look like, and it's nothing wrong with people being in shape and being healthy, because everybody wants to be in shape and want to be healthy. Nobody wants to be out of breath going up a flight of steps. We get that part. But what it became a means by which they could sit up and tell you everything that was wrong with you, and then charge you three, four, 500, $1,000 for the privilege.
Damn.
And you ain't even touched a woman, but you've given them $1,000 to talk over a telephone and tell them what's wrong with you.
Wow.
And I thought it was something inherently wrong with that. I
Okay.
thought you were ripping, you're robbing people. You've made me your trick. I'm
Mm.
supposed to be tricking with the 304.
Yeah.
You turned me into your trick. Now you have become the 304, and you are the wrong gender. You're the wrong persuasion for me to be turning a trick with.
Mm.
That was my problem. Okay, so now I done went from chasing the 304 the validation by the 304 as a heterosexual man, now you done made this homosocial.
Wow.
I'm chasing validation from you and paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm paying you more than I would have paid the 304.
Wow.
I would have at best gave the 304 a couple $100. You
Mm-hmm.
want thousands of dollars from me to tell me what's wrong with me and to make me like you.
Okay.
And you're never going to be like these dudes.
Mm-hmm.
Truth be told, if we really want to if we want to talk honestly, they're not who they say they are.
Okay.
They're just playing a particular aspect of their personality or their physical attributes that women do. But these men are not all the things that they say they are. Or they don't tell you all the work that they have to go through to maintain appearances.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So my thing was, okay, scrap that. These are your attributes. You have to figure out a way to, as we would say, play your low pair and still come up aces.
Yeah.
And that's the conversation I was interested in. I wasn't interested in trying to mimic Kevin Samuels. I wasn't interested in trying to mimic Alan Roger Curry. I wasn't interested in trying to mimic anybody.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be myself, flaws and all. Whatever things, whatever issues I had to work through, I would work through them. Those would be my issues. But that's a far cry from saying I don't deserve to pursue pleasure the same way as the next person pursues pleasure. The
Mm-hmm.
pursuit of pleasure and the pursuit of ecstasy, I think that everybody has a right to that. And I don't think that people should be denied that. But it's wrong for you to tell me I have to be like you to obtain it. And then
Mm-hmm.
again, like I said, overcharge me for the process. And then when you did that, a lot of times when they did that, and we didn't look at this at the time, I knew this was happening. I
Mm-hmm.
knew, I said, look, I said, if people keep sitting up following all of these content creators that's sitting here supposedly giving away all this game, which was really trash, what you're going to do is give these dudes a complex. And that's exactly what happened. So the
Mm-hmm.
weirdo behavior that we start seeing on social media and YouTube was nothing but, in essence, they had given these dudes a complex about who they were. I accentuated the fact they said when we talked about fat tricks with money,
Yeah.
it's telling you this is what it is. Now, nobody's saying that they're glorifying being fat. What
Mm-hmm.
they're telling you is we're turning conventional theory on its face. Nobody's saying go be overweight. Nobody's saying any of that. We were just saying, in essence, that look, these guys don't have a monopoly when it comes to the pursuit of pleasure and ecstasy. That's all that was being said. And I wanted to give the dudes that were in the other line a voice. I wanted to try to voice a lot of the frustrations and a lot of the disappointments that they were dealing with in terms of relating fee. And I wanted to give an explanation as to why they were going through those disappointments, why they were having those frustrations. What it means when she say, I'm loving me some him. What does that mean? Well, when you look at the other side, Mac played a video of the evil and diabolical and sinister KBK. You see
Mm-hmm.
her in all her glory, right?
Yeah.
You see that in all of her glory. Now, when you look at that and you understand and you would say, well, look, I'm changing my appearance just because I want to smash her. No, sir.
Mm-hmm.
No, sir. I'm not putting on a suit to smash a rat like that.
Right.
I'm not going out of my way to adopt a persona to impress a low light rat who's arguing with a nigga in the penitentiary.
Mm.
What sense does that make?
Okay.
Why am I going to try to be like him just to attract her?
Right.
You see? And by the same token, I'm not saying that to steal her humanity. I'm saying you have to know the league in which you're playing. And adopting another uniform or putting on a uniform to play in that league is unnecessary.
Right.
That was the whole point. That was my perspective. And so my commentary was geared towards dudes that were the underdogs, dudes that were not the first chosen. But when I looked at it, I saw that look, We are recycling vagina
Mm-hmm.
because there are very few virgins in the game. And truth be told, ninjas don't want no virgins. You
Right.
know they don't want no virgins. They want women that are super skilled porno stars. So these dudes that are talking about virtuous and virginal women, they don't want that.
Mm.
That's just a way for them to shame the 304s into compliance. And that was fraudulent to me as well. All this talk about marriage and all this talk about women being traditional, they didn't want traditional women. They didn't want traditional women.
Hey, let's back up for a minute, right quick.
Okay,
Let's
let's
go ahead
back.
and put the disclaimer on here once again. What we always say, but we didn't start the conversation off with this. Remember, fellas, this is for entertainment
Purpose.
purposes
Oh,
only. This is
yeah.
not to be used to find your soulmate. This is to be used to get your rocks off, man. That's that's now that's not to say that you can't necessarily find a soulmate. Stranger things have happened. But far too many times we get on YouTube and we get everybody trying to shame the trick because they be like, "You out there trying to, find women and wives and get in relationships by tricking." And I'm like, you know what? That is true. There's a lot of dudes out here that's deluded enough to think that if they leave with their wallet, they're gonna find a soulmate. No, that's not gonna happen, man. That's the wrong move. But like I said, if you want to just get a load off, if you want to relieve some stress, yeah, this is a real good way to do it, man. The power trick lifestyle. What you got to say, Tony?
What I was going to say, well, let's go into what you were saying. Now we all know when we first started. When we first started this dating thing, when we
Yeah,
started the process of courting or liking or dating women, the object was to get laid.
yeah,
Getting laid, and I'm gonna say this, and this is another thing that people are not gonna like. Sex and the idea and the participation of sex is a crucial part in the development of men and women
right.
because you're finding out who you are. You're finding out what you like. You're finding out what turns you crank and what you're attracted to. And that can only happen if you participate. The game is in the field, as they say.
Hmm.
And this can only happen if you participate in the dating market. It can only happen if you are an active participant and pursuer of pleasure.
Yeah,
And again, I'm trying to censor myself.
yeah,
If you are an active pursuer of pleasure, you have to get involved. So, dating and sex is a crucial part of your evolution. You're finding out what kind of woman you want by actively participating in the field and weeding out the people that you don't want. Okay, I like this here, but not so much this. Okay, this turned me on. Well, I ain't really into that. Well, the only way you could do that is you have to be in the field, but a large percentage of men had found themselves locked out of that experience. So, how you supposed to know what kind of woman you want as a wife if you don't know sexually what you're attracted to? That's a formula for tricking every time. You're going to find your way right back to the blade because what you're doing is you're marrying for utility as opposed to marrying someone who's a match for your personality.
hmm
You understand? So
yeah,
people have to, in some instance, get involved in the act of sex as a part of their development. Now, there's some that are going to say, well, sex out of marriage, it opens all kind of doors, and it does. They're absolutely right about that. It does open all kind of doors. But the problem is that human beings are too complicated. They're too complex and too intricate, unfortunately, to follow the admonitions of biblical scripture. That's just it's human nature just ain't made up that way.
hey,
So
look,
we're gonna
I, I,
expect.
I
Go ahead.
yeah, hey, I do you one better, man. It even transcends sex, man, because just the very fact that you have to interact with the woman, you have to actually sit there and talk to her. You have to sit there and actively devise some sort of inroad to convince her, to woo her, to I mean, just the very act of communicating with a woman. And even though it may involve some sort of monetary transaction, that is still that's still sharpening your blades, man. You still trying to figure out who you are and what you made of. And you know what? What you'll tend to find out is if what I like to look at money as, money was like training wheels to me. That's what it was. It was just like, okay, I got this female and I like shit and I want shit. So how am I going to go ahead and I'm going to get some inroads